All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating, kind of weird glitch in the human brain. It's something that explains why sometimes the least competent people are also the most confident. And trust me, it affects every single one of us in ways we don't even realize. You know you have. We all have. It's that awful sinking feeling, right? When your total certainty just evaporates and you realize, wow, I had no idea what I was talking about. For most of us, it's just a little embarrassing. But when that same overconfidence isn't checked, well, it can lead to some truly spectacular failures. So let me tell you about a guy named MacArthur Wheeler. In 1995, he learned that lemon juice can be used as invisible ink. And from that, he made let's call it a creative leap. He figured if he just slathered his face in lemon juice, he'd be invisible to security cameras. So he did it. He robbed 2 banks in broad daylight, even smiled right at the cameras. And when the police showed up at his door later that day, he was genuinely completely baffled that it didn't work. His story, as wild as it sounds, is the perfect example of a really powerful cognitive bias. And that story brings us right to the heart of this explainer, the Dunning-Kruger effect. See, Wheeler wasn't just bad at being a criminal. He was so bad he lacked the mental tools to even recognize how bad he was. And that is the central mind-bending paradox we're going to unpack. So, back in 1999, 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, they decided to actually study this phenomenon. And they found consistently that the people with the absolute least skill in something, whether it was grammar, logic, whatever, were the most likely to think they were great at it. They called it the double curse. Not only are you incompetent, but you're so incompetent you can't even see it. But here's the kicker, the real twist in their research. While unskilled people are, blissfully unaware of how much they're failing, the truly skilled people, they often have the exact opposite problem. They tend to underestimate their own abilities. Why? Because they wrongly assume that the stuff they find easy must be just as easy for everybody else. So, okay, if we're all prone to this, how do we get any better? How do we go from clueless to actually competent? Well, it helps to think of it as a journey, a path that we all follow whenever we learn something new. It has 4 really distinct stages. So the journey starts at what's famously called the peak of Mount Stupid. This is where you know just a little bit, which makes you feel like an expert. Your confidence is sky high. But then reality sets in. As you learn more, you fall hard into the valley of despair. You're suddenly crushed by how vast and complex the subject is and how little you actually know. It hurts, but it's where real learning begins. From there, you start the slow, steady climb up the slope of enlightenment, where your skill and your confidence start to grow together, realistically. And finally, you reach the plateau of sustainability, a place of genuine expertise where you have a clear picture of what you know and, just as importantly, what you don't. So what's the one skill that helps you navigate this whole crazy journey? It's something called metacognition. It's simply the ability to think about your own thinking. It's that little voice inside your head that can step back and ask, wait a minute, am I really sure about this? What might I be missing? It's the key that unlocks you from the Dunning-Kruger curse. Now, this isn't just some fun, quirky psychological theory. It has huge, real-world consequences that shape our society in profound ways every single day. Let's take a look at where you can see this thing in action. I mean, just think about the workplace, right? The person who sounds super confident in the interview gets the job, even if they're totally unqualified. Or think about social media, which is basically a giant Dunning-Kruger engine creating echo chambers where false certainty about really complex topics just gets amplified. And in politics, it creates intense polarization where people hold these incredibly strong opinions based on a very shallow understanding. This effect isn't harmless. It's actively shaping our world for the worse. Okay, it's really important here to separate the Dunning-Kruger effect from its well-known cousin, imposter syndrome. Think of them as 2 sides of the exact same coin of self-assessment. Dunning-Kruger is the unearned confidence of the beginner who thinks they know it all. Imposter syndrome is the total opposite. It's that nagging self-doubt of the expert, that feeling that you're a fake and you're about to be found out, no matter how much evidence you have to the contrary. So why on earth do experts fall into that imposter trap?
Well, it's something called the burden of knowledge. When you become a true expert in something, you actually forget what it felt like to not know it. You can't imagine a novice's point of view anymore. So you start assuming that your hard-won knowledge is just common sense. And since it feels so easy to you, you radically underestimate how truly skilled you are compared to everyone else.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little depressing. If the incompetent are clueless and the competent feel like frauds, what are we supposed to do? Well, the good news is there's a lot we can do. This last section is all about your personal toolkit for fighting back. The whole game is to constantly check in with yourself. First, just never stop learning. The more you learn, the more you realize how much there is to know. Second, actively go looking for honest feedback from people you trust to tell you the truth. Don't just wait for your annual review. Third, get in the habit of questioning yourself. Challenge your own beliefs. And maybe the most important one, learn to be okay with being wrong. See it as an opportunity to get smarter, not as a failure. Because in the end, the real antidote to the Dunning-Kruger effect is something called intellectual humility. It's this simple but incredibly powerful idea of just admitting you don't have all the answers. It's about shifting your goal from wanting to be right to wanting to get it right. And that right there is the foundation of genuine wisdom. So I'll leave you with a challenge for this week. Think about one thing. Could be at work, a hobby, a political belief. One thing you feel really confident about. Now, how could you push on that confidence a little bit? Who could you ask for an honest opinion? What could you read from an opposing viewpoint? The answer to that question might just be your first step up that slope of enlightenment.